UFO sightings are nothing new. Now that some official government has even admitted to the phenomena, taking it seriously, it reduces the shaming factor for all those who've had such experiences. Alien abductions are another phenomenon, slightly more controversial, but nonetheless experienced by many people, too many to be ignored. Canada, and more predominantly Quebec, has had its share of sightings and abductions. I find these stories highly intriguing and am compelled by the sincerity of those claiming to have been abducted. I spent some time looking into one such story from 1975 up in a remote area of Quebec. The event was known as the Crique-la-corne UFO sighting. A man in his 20s at the time, Mario Fréchette, had a sighting in the community of Crique-la-corne near Val-d'Or, Quebec, and claimed to have been abducted. He even took his story to the police, and there was a brief media coverage of the event not long after. He shared his story with a local newspaper and even the local radio station CKVD. Strange lights in the sky were observed by several witnesses in the area. A local resident even took several shots of the mysterious lights in his field. A farmer, Mr. LeBlanc, was returning from the barn after milking his cows and observed the lights twirling in the sky above the tree line. A woman who was driving on Route 111 that evening from Amos to Val-d'Or stopped at the side of the road to observe these strange lights in the sky. She filed her report with the Val-d'Or police the next day. Mr. Fréchette had such an intriguing account of an alien abduction that it captivated my attention. But what happened subsequently was even more curious. I contacted Mario Fréchette in order to know more about his story. I am very privileged that he agreed to an interview to relate some of the experiences he had some 40 years ago, experiences that he did not reveal during the radio interview or in the press. Here is my exchange with Mr. Fréchette. Good evening, Mr. Fréchette. Can you resume for us the events of that evening?
Well, it was the evening of February 22nd, 1975, a Saturday evening just like any other. I was coming back from delivering tractor parts for Mr. LeBlanc. It was about 6:30 when I saw the first shiny little balls flashing everywhere. It was very dark and these little balls were bouncing around in the sky next to the Highway 111. There was a big, brighter ball, and several smaller ones following it. I decided to follow the big ball until it immobilized in the field next to the curve turning towards La Corne. I was like hypnotized by the big ball. It's as if she was calling me. The closer I got to the big ball, the more I heard a voice in my head telling me to come closer, and that it was okay not to be afraid. I was not afraid. But I felt something in my neck, and I got the urge to. Well, you know, when it hits your stomach, the urge to go to the toilet. But a voice that I seemed to know told me to step into the light. And I did. When I entered the light, my urge to go to the bathroom suddenly stopped. And I felt as good as ever. But on the other hand, I no longer recognized where I was. I was somewhere else, like in an operation room. And that's when I saw several small beings with big eyes appear, who seemed really intrigued by my presence. In the distance, I saw a dark form approaching, and I started to hear a very loud noise, which scared the little guys off. Then, everything went dark like when you turn off a TV. I saw black, but I heard several sounds, or voices in a language that I did not know. Then everything was like a dream. I felt like I was in a hot bath. And suddenly the same comforting voice I heard at the beginning told me in my head that it would soon be over.
Can you tell us what happened when you were back on land, out of the The apparatus?
From there I don't remember much, except that I woke up on the steps of the church, round 10 a.m. about 4 hours later. I heard all over, but now. I am going to tell you something that I have never told anyone.
I was shocked by his revelation. What he told me next, Mr. Fréchette had never revealed to anyone before.
At that time of night, everything was closed. I walked home. My wife was waiting and she was really worried. As soon as I got home, my wife was there. And it was weird, odd. She was talking to me. She was saying words to me. There were other things going on. Like a voice was talking to me in my head. I was hearing it in my head. Not like words and sentences, but it was like thoughts, ideas. These were not my thoughts. I was confused at first. It was even dizzying. All those noises. It was hard to make out what she was telling me in words. I told her a bit of my story of the light, of what happened to me, but we were tired. And I remember telling her that maybe I should go to the police. And there, I clearly heard in her head, "No, he can't go tell that to the police. I wouldn't want him to see Pierre. I will have to call him first to let him know." Things like that. I don't remember too much, but I tried to think. Who is Pierre? Then I thought of Pierre Thibault. Pierre Thibault, of the Sûreté du Québec in Amos. I didn't understand why I shouldn't talk to Pierre. I felt like a feeling of shame, fear, weird things. It seemed unrelated to my incident. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't sleep all night. I thought about all that. I was exhausted. I thought I had hallucinated the whole thing. I just wanted to wake up, but I wasn't sleeping. I went the next day to the police station anyway. I asked to speak with Sergeant Thibault. While I spoke with him the same thing as my wife, I heard thoughts which were not mine. There, I had a hard time holding myself back. I felt that the sergeant despised me. He ridiculed me. I tried to understand the thoughts, but suddenly, I saw images. Images that grabbed me so much. I saw everything. Him. My wife. I saw. Well, you can understand that I stopped in the middle of my deposition. Anyway, Sergeant Thibault was laughing. I couldn't sit down and continue. I walked out of the police station and really needed someone to talk to. That's when I went to see my boss, who was also my friend at the time, Romeo Lacroix, and he lives not far from the Sûreté du Québec. When I arrived at his house, he welcomed me, and right away I started to quietly hear his thoughts again. I didn't want to, but it was stronger than me. I started to tell him my story, and immediately I saw that it would lead to nothing. I heard what he was thinking. I tried to ignore it, but I was not able to. I could hear him doubting my story and thinking that I was working too much. I was one of his best employees. He was afraid that I was going crazy.
So, how did this change your life?
Well, I lost my wife. That's obvious. I couldn't be with her anymore. I never told her how I found out, but... I didn't work long for Romeo. I didn't like hearing what he thought of me and how he saw me. It showed me how sometimes people who we think are our friends are not really. I started a small delivery business in the area. I lived a rather solitary life. The times I tried to develop relationships, I always hear their thoughts too much. I gave up.
How did it feel to be able to read people's minds, to know what they were thinking?
It's very weird to hear what people think at first, especially since 90% of people don't say what they think. It is entering their intimacy without their consent. Many people have terrible secrets and would rather die than expose their thoughts, or what they do, or their experiences.
Is this an ability you're happy to have?
Yes, at first. But eventually, knowing what everyone was really thinking made me become antisocial. And more I watched life from afar. Being alone with my own thoughts is what I find most comforting. I lived what I lived, and no one can give me an explanation of why all this happened to me. And above all, why?
So you are able to read minds. Are you able to read what I am thinking? What I'm thinking now?
In fact, I don't consider myself a circus beast, and that's one of the reasons why I've always kept this secret to myself. It's apparent in the profession of locksmith, who if he wants can enter all the houses. Everyone has a little or a big secret eating away at them. I don't think you would like everyone to know that.
I cannot include here what he told me. Effectively, this man has an acute ability to read minds. I was not prepared for that. What would you like to leave behind before leaving this world?
In fact, I don't think I will leave anything to anyone. I never had children because I could never bear the idea of hearing their thoughts. And at the end of the day, I only have a short time left to live, and essentially, I just want to die in peace. More and more people just don't think. They repeat what they hear without understanding anything, and log on to their television or now the internet to learn what to say if they are asked questions. And the education system is just entertainment. And the motivation for most people is either money or sex. Those who dare to think or think too hard, or have an opinion that differs from the discourse imposed by the media and the internet are put in the bucket of the enlightened, or conspiracy theorists. As for me, I just watch the show and wait. There's nothing really I can do, let alone pass on something to someone.
7 days after this interview, I got news that Mr. Fréchette had passed on. He had been suffering from a very rare disease for a couple of years and was aware that his days were numbered. I feel privileged to have been able to speak with him before he died. His revelation about his experience and his strange ability is startling and leaves us with food for thought.